Hello there. I am the real life fake wizard. The Mandalorian and Grogu is finally here, and with it, all of the access media reviews. Within hours of the review embargo being lifted, the Rotten Tomatoes score had cratered into the low 60s. As of filming this, it sits currently at 61% from 143 reviews. This is the movie that Disney bet the theatrical future of Star Wars on, the first Star Wars film in nearly 7 years. The supposed proof of concept that the franchise still works. It not only just works for the big screen, but at all. Star Wars is a severely damaged brand. And the trades, the very outlets whose economic survival depends on maintaining access to Disney screeners and set visits, junkets, exclusives, all you know. Well, they could barely muster a defense for The Mandalorian and Grogu. The reviews cataloged in this video we'll go through together are from Legacy Entertainment Media. These are publications with institutional relationships to the Walt Disney Company. They are, by professional necessity, the friendliest possible jury for a movie like this. When Variety grades a Disney tentpole, the grade arrives with the gravitational pull of advertising revenue, future access, and corporate goodwill baked into their curve. If these outlets are landing on words like disposable, inconsequential, and generic, that means the product underneath must be significantly worse than the language truly suggests. So here are the 10 worst reviews of The Mandalorian and Grogu, ranked from middlest to most severe, with the understanding that even the middlest of these constitutes a damning indictment from a press corps that has every reason to play nice. Now, before we begin, I would like to establish the economics and why the economics matter more than just vibes. Disney has reported the production budget for The Mandalorian and Grogu is approximately $165 million, making it the cheapest Star Wars film of the Disney era. That number deserves boatloads of skepticism. Disney has a well-documented history of underreporting production costs, and $165 million almost certainly excludes the very large and very expensive global marketing campaign, which, for a franchise tentpole opening in every major territory simultaneously, has had a Super Bowl ad, has product placement in every store, has commercials everywhere all the time, always, is not cheaping out on the marketing. Marketing costs for big budget films usually add another $100 to $150 million to the budget at minimum. Disney usually spending more than that. Then we need to factor in the theatrical exhibition cuts. Theaters typically retain 40 to 50% of domestic gross revenue. Sometimes Disney negotiates this differently, but something that they don't get to negotiate very much is the international splits, which vary by territory, or in this case, country. Disney does not get a very clean 50% cut of ticket sales from countries like China. The real break-even number lands somewhere between $500 and $600 million worldwide. This movie needs to clear at least $500 million. With word of mouth that is this bad, and not even the glorified trades can muster up the kindness to say this movie is good, does this movie have a shot at all? I guess we'll find out soon. Let's get to the reviews. Number 10, Variety. Variety's chief film critic filed what reads, at first glance, like a charitable review. Let's look a little closer. Gleiberman compared The Mandalorian to a character who would have been, quote, listed 15th in the credits of an actual Star Wars movie. A figure of, in his words, lightweight gravitas. He described the film as carrying a tidy, small-screen consciousness, and said the ironic reason the characters translate to the big screen is that they arrive with our collective sense of lowered expectations. Guys, this is number 10. This is the chief film critic of the most powerful trade publication in Hollywood, telling you that the movie succeeds only because audiences have been trained to expect nothing. That framing, like it's just competent product evaluated against the baseline of institutional mediocrity, is the most revealing positive review in our entire batch. Number 9, The Hollywood Reporter. The headline says everything the review spends paragraphs trying to soften. The film is just good enough to make you wish it were better. Sheck acknowledged Pedro Pascal's charisma and the Grogu puppetry, then landed on a thesis that the film's highest ambition was clearing the bar set by The Rise of Skywalker, a movie widely considered a creative disaster. He also observed that it's hard to imagine anyone encountering this as their first Star Wars film and becoming a lifelong fan. When a legacy trade frames better than the worst one as the ceiling of achievement, the reviewer has already conceded their argument. The Hollywood Reporter gave Disney the gentlest possible version of a bad grade, and even that version admits this film aspires to nothing. Number 8, Collider. Collider occupies a special niche in the entertainment media ecosystem. It exists almost entirely to cover franchise IPs. Its readership is the core demographic for a movie like this, and Collider gave it a 6 out of 10 review, called the film the most forgettable and inconsequential entry the franchise has ever produced. A site whose editorial identity is built around championing exactly this kind of product, identified it as the single most disposable Star Wars release in the history of the brand. The review tried to hedge by acknowledging there's fun to be had, but a 6 out of 10 from Collider carries the same weight as a 4 out of 10 from an outlet with less skin in the game. Number 7, IndieWire. IndieWire is a Penske media property, which means it's owned by the same company that owns Variety and Deadline and plenty of others. Oh, and if you didn't know already, nearly all of the major Hollywood trades and news organizations that you know and follow are owned by 3 or 4 companies. They're nearly all the same company, just with different titles, different headlines. But regardless, IndieWire tagged The Mandalorian and Grogu as Star Wars at its most generic. Urblands described it as inessential and inoffensive, and characterized the structure as 3 good enough TV episodes smushed together. Then came the line that will follow this movie into what I believe is every retrospective written about it after the film comes out and goes digital. It feels disposable. It feels like, well, what most things feel like these days: content. A publication owned by the same conglomerate that publishes Variety just called Disney's flagship theatrical Star Wars release content. It's the most pejorative word in the modern entertainment lexicon. It's a word that means product manufactured to fill a subscription library. And she gave it a C+, which in the IndieWire grading scale is the equivalent of it should have been better. Number 6, Den of Geek. Den of Geek's review contained one of the most efficient summations of this entire batch. The film is, quote, the first summer tentpole blockbuster that feels like a small screen rerun. Crow called it disappointingly average in a universe that once inspired awe. Past tense, doing all the heavy lifting in that sentence there. The review praised a single sequence as Grogu alone in a swamp rendered in IMAX, and that seems to have genuine warmth and ambition, which only sharpened the indictment of everything else surrounding it. When your best compliment is that one isolated sequence of a 132-minute film briefly resembled what Star Wars used to feel like, you've written an obituary. Number 5, RogerEbert.com. This review opened by asking whether the film represents the beginning of the end of Star Wars' dominance over science fiction. We're not at the beginning, we're just at the end. He called the movie essentially 2.5 episodes of a TV show strung together and released to the theaters. Then noted with audible irritation that Disney Plus subscribers don't even get a discount on tickets. He invoked Bob Iger's own admission that too many Marvel shows diluted focus and attention of the fan base, and pointed out that Lucasfilm apparently ignored that lesson entirely. He compared Grogu's performative cuteness to jazz hands? Jazz hands. That's where we're at for Star Wars, folks. Jazz hands! Number 4, Gizmodo. This review concluded that the film is a throwaway adventure in the lives of these characters. A blip, a side quest. He said it adds nothing of significance to Star Wars as a franchise or to the Mandalorian and Grogu as characters, and summarized the entire experience as a mindless ride, a way to kill 2 hours and forget about the world. This person just told you there is nothing here worth caring about, and if there's no reason to care, then there's no reason to get the whole family in the car on a Saturday afternoon and spend over $100 at the theater. This review opened with a question that doubled as a thesis. What if someone made a Star Wars movie that wasn't really for anyone in particular? They argued that the film, born from the institutional panic that followed the backlash to The Rise of Skywalker and The Last Jedi, I'll insert that myself, was engineered to be so safe and so inoffensive that it could never generate a strong reaction in any direction. The result, in this framing, is a movie that neglects to tell a meaningful tale worth anyone's time. A film so terrified of provoking the online discourse machine that it simply chose to say nothing at all. A 4 out of 10 from Slash Film lands with a particular force because this is a site that graded The Rise of Skywalker higher. Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni's aggressively safe, designed by committee, say nothing approach managed to score lower than the film that killed Palpatine again, but with Force lightning reflected back into his face. Number 2, Flickering Myth called the film a textbook Jon Favreau special, a phrase he coined to describe work that is technically competent and visually polished on the surface while remaining completely hollow underneath. He said the film contains no soul, no urgency, no momentum, and no evidence that an artist was involved who wanted to tell a story that resonated with audiences. That by the time the credits roll, nothing of significance has happened for the characters or the franchise. Number 1. Clarice Laray's review has become the most circulated piece of Mandalorian and Grogu criticism within hours of publication. And for good reason. She wrote the headline every other critic was thinking but lacked the institutional freedom or courage to print. Stick a fork in Star Wars. It's done. The review beneath that headline was equally unsparing. Luray described the film as 3 episodes of a canceled 4th season of The Mandalorian, stitched together with no evident effort to adapt the material for a theatrical experience. She noted that Pedro Pascal receives approximately 5 minutes of unmasked screen time, and that when his helmet comes off, the violation of his character's principles carries 0 narrative weight because the film has constructed no one and nothing to register the stakes. She called Jeremy Allen White's vocal performance completely dispirited, and she posed the question that sits underneath the entire critical response to this movie, the question Disney has to answer and cannot. How many nails can we realistically drive into Star Wars' coffin before it's time to give up hope of resuscitation? One observation from this review cycle deserves its own space aside from the 10 we just discussed, because it moves beyond critical opinion into something closer to market research. Digital Spy's Ian Sandwell reported that during a screening populated entirely by Star Wars fans, which also means they are Disney Star Wars fans, which is the most favorable possible audience composition, the hero moments in the film's set pieces were met with barely a murmur. This is an eyewitness account of the pre-selected, maximally sympathetic target demographic failing to respond to the sequences designed to generate maximum enthusiasm. If the super fans sitting in that theater couldn't summon a reaction for the movie's most climactic moments, the general audience walking in cold on opening weekend will end up going back to their phones. Normies don't care, and normies are checked out on Star Wars. If the Disney Star Wars shills don't care, normies won't at all. What this means is that there is a pattern, and it is now undeniable. The sequel trilogy made $1 billion, but hemorrhaged goodwill and saw each sequel gross less than its predecessor. Solo bombed outright. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Mandalorian Season 3, and, for me, Ahsoka Season 1 were widely panned on Disney Plus by fans with diminishing viewership. The Acolyte was canceled after 1 season, And now, the supposed safe bet, the most commercially beloved Star Wars property of the streaming era, backed by the full weight of the Disney theatrical machine, has landed at 61% on Rotten Tomatoes. Baby Yoda is the beginning and the end for what most people care about when it comes to Star Wars anymore. And it's mostly from women and children who think Grogu is cute. This character has had zero development over the last 7 years that we've known him, and because of that, sure, you can say Grogu has moved 13 million units of product, but with no more changes to his character, and not even a true costume change, everyone that has a Grogu anything already has it. There is no desire to buy Grogu anything anymore. If this film is what the trades themselves can only describe as content, Disney has a problem that no amount of brand extension can solve. No amount of Burger King crowns can fix this. Ryan Gosling's Starfighter is next on the docket for 2027, but the brand's damage is done and the pain is here to stay. If people are going to see Starfighter, it's because they like Ryan Gosling, not because they care about Star Wars. The trades, whether they like it or not, told you the truth this time, and not through direct honesty, but through their choice of words. They told you in hedged language, couched in careful vocabulary of critics who understand that access is their currency. But they told you. And the truth is, the movie Disney spent 7 years building toward, and was supposed to restore Star Wars to theatrical viability, is, by the consensus of its own sympathetic press corps, a 132-minute screensaver with shades of green, and shades of silver, and shades of brown. It's a $500 million screensaver. The fork is in. The question is whether Disney CEO Josh D'Amaro has the cojones to do what must be done and start lobbing off heads at Lucasfilm. Until next time, my friends, create, innovate, inspire others to do so as well, and for the love of God, cancel Disney Plus. I don't know, man. Everybody talks about the apathy phase and no one cares about Star Wars anymore. And maybe that's true for normies. Like, yeah, normies don't care. But I'm in the revenge phase now. I want revenge. These guys suck. Screw Lucasfilm. I hope this movie tanks.